Welcome to The Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. Biden's multi-trillion infrastructure plan has finally set America's priorities straight. $20 billion will be used to destroy racist highways? Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced two bills on April 1st. Will she be able to expose Dr. Fauci? Biden has reversed Trump's executive orders to ban critical race theory from being taught in schools. How much do you know about critical race theory yourself? Okay, my friends, let us take a closer look together. After the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan rolled out, Biden unveiled the next phase of his administration's agenda in Pittsburgh on Wednesday. Another $2.2 trillion infrastructure plan. It has a rather grandiose name, the American Jobs Plan. According to the White House, the U.S. currently ranks 13th globally in infrastructure quality. Now that's down 5th place in 2002. More than 1/3 of our bridges need repairs or preservation work, and 1 in 5 miles of our highways and major roads are in poor conditions. Now, it's true, America needs to strengthen its infrastructure. If Biden's infrastructure initiative puts a strong focus on traditional infrastructure projects, such as roads and bridges, there will be strong bipartisan support. But the plan Biden laid out on Wednesday is far from the case. Previously, Biden managed to pass the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill without a single Republican supporter in Congress. Only 9% of the funding goes to pandemic-related items. The vast majority of the American Rescue Plan are goodies to help Democratic allied activist groups and unions, and will bail out state and local governments that impose shutdowns on their communities. Biden's infrastructure plan will now follow the same idea. Only $115 billion, that's less than 6% of the proposal, goes to roads and bridges. The package would spend more money on electric cars than on American roads, bridges, ports, airports, and waterways combined. As a matter of fact, Biden's infrastructure proposal is referred to an omnibus package, which means it covers more untraditional infrastructure projects than traditional, including Green New Deal programs and income equality. What's worse is we have to figure out where the money to pay for another $2 trillion debt is going to come from. Massive tax increases? America could have the largest tax hike since World War II. The infrastructure plan will be paid for over 15 years by a series of tax increases. The corporate rate is expected to be raised from 21% to 28%. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is at least telling the truth this time. He tweeted on Wednesday, the administration's non-infrastructure bill looks like another Trojan horse for far-left demands, rolling back rights to work laws, imposing the biggest new tax hike in a generation, killing jobs and slowing wage growth when workers need a fast recovery. Let's take a look at what else is in the plan. The single largest item in the proposal is a $400 billion investment towards expanding access to quality, affordable home or community-based care for aging relatives and people with disabilities. The White House said caregivers are disproportionately women of color who have been underpaid and undervalued for a long time. The new investment will expand home and community-based services, which will create more caregiver jobs of higher pay to benefit, quote, low-income communities and communities of color. The White House's explanation sounds like the bill is created to help caregivers of color more than seniors and the disabled. This spending item is essentially wearing an infrastructure hat to push for income equality. Citing Chinese investment in electrical vehicles, EV, Biden proposed $174 billion, the second largest stream of funding, would go to the EV market. The proposal also calls for federal grants to state and local governments and corporations to build 500,000 charging ports for EVs by 2030. In addition, Biden is eyeing a school bus and postal service fleet completely reliant on electric vehicles. The infrastructure plan will spend at least $127 billion on developing clean energy, including $100 million dedicated to push the energy grid towards cheaper, cleaner electricity. The plan will use the federal government's incredible purchasing power to drive clean energy deployment across the market by purchasing 24/7 clean power for federal buildings. in a drive to reach carbon pollution-free power by 2035. Biden's plans to invest $100 billion more to upgrade and build new public schools. But wait, the $1.9 trillion COVID bill already contained more than $120 billion for K-12 schools. Why do you want another $100 billion on schools now? The $120 billion from the last rescue fund can't even be spent in 2021 because the money approved to help schools from last year hasn't been rolled out yet. More interestingly, people also found out Biden's infrastructure bill will help destroy, quote, racist highways. The outline of the American Jobs Plan specifically mentions two problematic highways and how they divide black communities. Quote, too often past transportation investments divide communities, like the Claiborne Expressway in New Orleans or the I-81 in Syracuse, or if left out, the people most in need of affordable transportation options. Biden's infrastructure plan specifically devotes $20 billion for reconnecting neighborhoods cut off by historic investments and ensures new projects will only increase opportunity, advance racial equity and environmental justice, and promote affordable access. So let's all be mindful of the fact that roads and highways can be racist too. If they happen to cause inequities across minority neighborhoods, Biden's infrastructure plan has $20 billion to destroy them. We don't want to get into everything on Biden's wish list, but you get the idea. The alleged infrastructure plan actually has very little to do with traditional infrastructure projects. So why are they calling it an infrastructure plan? Just like the way they called it a COVID relief bill. David Ditch, an associate of the Heritage Foundation, said, by expanding the federal government and using the word infrastructure as a shield to hide a massive expansion of the welfare state, lawmakers are using the typical bipartisan nature of the infrastructure issue as a means for left-wing policy wins. Former President Trump lowered corporate tax from 35% to 21% during his first year in office. Now Biden is ready to jack the rates to 28%. Biden framed the tax hike as reasonable as it will still be lower than any point between World War II and 2017. However, a scale of 7% corporate rate increase will have a fundamental impact to American jobs. Following Biden's announcement of the $2 trillion infrastructure proposal, Trump issued a long statement criticizing this move and pointed out that the plan is a massive giveaway to China. He says, Biden promised to build back better, but the country he is building up in particular is China and other large segments of the world. Under the Biden administration, America is once again losing the economic war with China. And Biden's ludicrous multi-trillion-dollar tax hike is a strategy for total economic surrender. Trump argues that this is possibly the largest tax hike in American history, which will make companies send thousands of factories, millions of jobs, and trillions of dollars to China and other competitive nations. Trump says under Biden's plan, if you create jobs in America and hire American workers, you will pay more in taxes. But if you close down your factories in Ohio and Michigan, fire U.S. workers, and move all your production to Beijing and Shanghai, you will pay less. It is the exact opposite of putting America first. It is putting America last. Trump says the tax hike, if allowed to pass, will be a win for the globalists like Joe Biden and his friends, lobbyists, special interests, Washington establishment bureaucrats, and the communist China. The victims are the hardworking American families. It's sarcastic that Biden calls it the American Job Plan. But don't lose hope and keep good faith. The first step to win back the battle is to let more Americans hear the truth. Former President Trump doesn't want you to lose hope either. He told his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, in an interview on March 30th that he's considering holding a rally soon. Trump said, "We're thinking about doing one relatively soon just to let everybody know that there is hope in the future." He also noted that people can have hope that Trump will run for president again in 2024. Before we continue, if you haven't already, please join me on our Eye Opener Telegram chat room. I am excited to see more people are joining every day, and it's becoming a great place to share your thoughts and connect with me and other like-minded people. The chat room link is down below. And if you are new to the show, allow me to say welcome. And please don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of the shows. I also want to thank all of you who already support us every day. It is an absolute pleasure to be able to deliver to you news that matters. Okay, my friends, let's get back to the show. Republicans in at least 7 states, among which are Iowa, West Virginia, Florida, New Hampshire, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, have introduced proposals that would ban the teaching concept of the quasi-Marxist critical race theory, also known as CRT. The measure seeks to ban government agencies from conducting training based on the theory, as well as to prohibit the incorporation of the concepts into school curriculums. The efforts are a backlash of Joe Biden's reversal of former President Donald Trump's executive order, which banned federal agencies, contractors, subcontractors, and grantees from instructing their employees to follow the CRT tenets. Critical race theory has gradually proliferated in recent decades through academia, government structures, school systems, and the corporate world. The theory redefines human history as a struggle between the oppressor, white people, and the oppressed, everybody else. Similarly to Marxism's reduction of history to a struggle between the bourgeois and the proletariat, the working class people, it labels institutions that emerged in majority white societies as racist and white supremacist. Similar to Marxism, CRT advocates for the destruction of institutions such as the Western justice system, free market economy, and orthodox religions, while demanding that they be replaced with institution compliant with the CRT ideology. But proponents of the CRT argue that the theory is merely demonstrating how pervasive systematic racism truly is. Scholars who have focused on decrypting the jargon of CRT literature say that the theory's arguments about systematic racism is not only riddled with fallacies, but also includes totalitarian elements of coercion and suppression of dissent, such as the rejection of all opposing views as illegitimate. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis recently denounced CRT as unsubstantiated and hateful. He said, quote, "There's no room in our classrooms for things like critical race theory. Teaching kids to hate their country and to hate each other is not worth 1 red cent of taxpayers' money." Oklahoma State Senator Jane Jett said he was appalled by the content in materials and testimonials on CRT circulating in schools. Jeff said they are basically psychological abuse of children who are having their entire curriculum hijacked by how can we look at this academic subject through the prism of race. The recent Atlanta shooting sparked a new round of Stop Asian Hate outcries from the left. But how do Asian Americans themselves view this issue? Alexander Liao, an Asian journalist for the Epoch Times, recently shared his thoughts on the Stop Asian Hate movement. Liao wrote, "In the United States, the issue of systematic racial discrimination is complex. There are several key points that stand in the way of me being able to agree that systematic racial oppression exists today in the form of white Americans specifically targeting people of color. More importantly, as someone who was raised in communist China, I'm worried that political entities are happy to wield radical equality rhetoric for political capital." In his commentary, Liao cited critical data that the mainstream media and progressive politics conveniently overlook. The Department of Justice hate crime data shows in 2019, 53% of all known hate crime offenders were white, while 24% were black. Now, according to 2019 U.S. Census data, white people accounted for 76% of America's population, while black people accounted for 13% only. So when you adjust the hate crime rate by the population size, black Americans committed proportionately more hate crimes than white Americans. Liao also noted these racial trends may be related to the socioeconomic status and the educational background of the perpetrators. So who actually benefits from the Stop Asian Hate movement? In February, the oldest Asian American civil rights group denounced CRT as real racism. The Chinese American Citizen Alliance of Greater New York said in a statement, "CRT appears in our workplace under the cover of implicit bias sensitivity training. It pretends to be a culturally, racially sensitive pedagogy. But CRT is exactly the opposite. From its very roots, CRT is racist, oppressive, and divisive." The Chinese American community also pointed out, quote, "CRT wants to drive Asians out of the best schools. They believe Asians account for too much of the student population. CRT is today's Chinese Exclusion Act. CRT is the real hate crime to deal with." Liao says CRT is the belief that legal institutions have no positive role for society and are fundamentally racist because they have been constructed by white people to further their economic and political interest at the expense of other people of color. The theory has been harnessed as a powerful political weapon by the left. Looks like Asian Americans are not beneficiaries of critical race theory. The progressives on the left are. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced two bills on April 1st. One of the bills, the Fire Fauci Act, which would cut Anthony Fauci's salary to zero. Greene said America deserves better than a self-promoting career bureaucrat like Fauci, who spent the last year getting it wrong almost all the time. According to the Washington Examiner, Anthony Fauci is among the top paid federal workers at a salary of $434,000. Greene's proposal would also require an audit of Fauci's office in order to see what Dr. Fauci knew when he knew it, what the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, spent money on, and what policies the organization recommended surrounding the COVID-19 outbreak. The other bill, the We Will Not Comply Act, will ban vaccine passports. Greene says vaccinations can be discriminatory against those who choose not to receive them, such as for religious reasons. The bill would bar the Department of State from requiring a vaccination to receive a diplomatic travel passport. Marjorie Greene earlier posted a video on Facebook exposing the Biden administration is trying to push the vaccine passport through private companies to avoid criticism.
Because you see, if Democrats pass this law, well then, what will all of us say? We will call them communist. We will call them fascist, right? These are the names we will call them. But if the companies do it, then it's a company policy and they're just saying, oh, this is to keep everyone safe. When you fly in the airplane, you need your vaccine passport. Oh, if you're going to come into the football game or the baseball game or the concert, you need your vaccine passport because we're trying to do a good job to keep everyone safe. This is what the Biden administration is trying to talk to these private companies into doing. Well, let's analyze that. You see, it's still the same thing. It's still fascism or communism, whatever you want to call it.
Although neither bill is expected to pass the Democratic-controlled House and Senate, Greene's proposal represents an escalation of criticism towards Dr. Fauci and the federal guidance regarding the pandemic. It is also a clever way to raise the public awareness of the Biden administration's latest moves. Marjorie Taylor Greene is an inspiration for other lawmakers in how to make your voice heard. There's some good news from the Lone Star State. The Texas Senate passed 7 pro-life bills this week. 3 of the 7 bills are priorities for Texas rights to life. They are the Preborn Non-Discrimination Act, the Texas Heartbeat Act, and the Texas Abolition Strategy. These measures would ban abortions sought due to biological sex, ethnicity, and disability of the preborn or once a fetal heartbeat is detected. Texas Right to Life expressed its gratitude towards the passage of the pro-life bills. They thanked Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and the Texas Senate for a historic session. All of the 7 bills have been sent to the State House for hearings and debate. Texas also made progress on securing election integrity this week. In the early hours on the morning of April 1st, Senator Byron Hughes announced that the Texas State Senate passed Senate Bill 7. Senator Hughes, who authored the legislation, described Senate Bill 7 as an omnibus election integrity bill. Hughes said, "This bill is about making it easy to vote and hard to cheat. We had a long debate. Scores of amendments were offered, and at the end of the day, the Texas Senate passed a strong election integrity bill that we can be proud of. To ensure every Texan has a fair and equal opportunity to vote, regardless of where they live in the state. The bill banned overnight early voting hours and drive-through early voting, while restricting how election officials handle mail voting, not allowing them to proactively send applications to vote by mail to voters, even if they qualify." Hughes said, overall, this bill is designed to address areas throughout the process where bad actors can take advantage, so Texans can feel confident that their elections are fair, honest, and open. Now the bill is heading over to the House. And that's it for today, my friends. Please like and share, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Check out these playlists right here for more eye-opening content. Now, don't forget, you can follow me on UMaker, Gab, Parler, and Telegram. Also, don't forget to sign up to the email list so that we can stay in contact with each other. Thank you all, and I will see you next time.